It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite. It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Let's see how mediocre I can make this live stream. Very uneventful, very unprepared, unprofessional, kind of a just makeshift setup going on here. So let's see how unentertaining I can make this be. So, hey guys, thank you so very much for taking the time to come check out this stream. Those of you guys, I see a lot of people in here that are regulars, and it's very humbling to know you guys come in here just to listen to me ramble. It's a really cool thing, okay? For those of you that are new, my name is Chris. I make these videos just to share the little bit of knowledge that I have, and yes, I know I'm touching my face amidst the craziness, right? But I wash my hands, so... yeah, so I make these videos just to share the little bit of knowledge that I have, okay? I am not an expert in anything, okay? I've just made a lot of mistakes, and I feel like I've learned from a lot of them. And the whole point of making these videos and doing these live streams is just to share the mistakes, okay? So in hopes that maybe you guys don't make the same mistakes as I. That's the plan. That's the goal. And what I plan to do with this, I have no idea. I never anticipated this channel turning into what it turned into. Where is this going to be in the future? I have no idea. I'm so unorganized and unprepared. I am not the person with a goal in mind. I do not have a 5-year plan for where I'm going to be and how I'm going to do this. I'm just winging this, guys. So, you know, it is what it is. And the one thing I can promise you guys, and I think it's pretty prevalent in the videos that I make and the stuff that I have done in the live streams that I do, is that I am going to do this my way. I'm going to partner with the people that I want to partner with, such as Sporlin. I am going to work with the people that I want to work with, and absolutely nobody is going to tell me what to do. I thank you very much for that super chat. That is much appreciated. Not expected, but thank you very much. Okay. But yeah, I don't plan on, I don't have any master plan for this. Okay. I am just kind of winging it. Um, it's interesting. It's, I said in the beginning, it's very humbling to see the response and the people that come in here. To think that there's over 100 people in here right now just watching me ramble, like whatever, you know, I mean, that's awesome. It's really cool. So as usual, I have a list of things I want to talk about, and I definitely want to get to your guys' questions in the chat. Okay. So please, if you guys have questions, put them in caps lock. If I don't get to your guys' questions, please do me a favor. Send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, and I will try to get to your email and answer it if I can. Okay. If I don't answer your question, just keep reposting them. I say this every time, but we always have new people in these streams, so just got to keep saying it, okay? Um, new news or whatever you want to call it. I kind of already mentioned this before. True Tech Tools has become, I wouldn't say a sponsor. They're an affiliate. I work with them, okay? And doing so, I've negotiated an offer code. The offer code is big picture, one word. Okay. And that'll save you 8% on your order with True Tech Tools. Okay. Originally, when I started with them, it was based off of affiliate codes. So you had to click my links, but we've since changed that. So if you guys feel the need to purchase any tools, you see any tools that I use in my videos that you like. Oh, guys, thank you for those super chats. HVACR Wiz, Terry Rafferzender. Sorry, I butchered your name. Thank you very much. Okay. But if you guys have any tools that you guys want to purchase, go check out truetechtools.com, whatever's on their website. You can look in the show notes of any one of my videos, and I usually link with affiliate links, the links of the tools that I've used, just in case some people, you'd be surprised how many people email me and ask me for links to the tools, okay? I know most people can Google it, but hey, whatever, I put links in the videos. But if you guys are in the market for any tools and you choose to use True Tech Tools, okay, you can also use your normal supply houses, but if you choose to use True Tech Tools, do me a favor and use my offer code Big Picture, because I do get a small commission every time you use that offer code, okay? So it doesn't cost you guys anything extra. Just use it, okay? Really appreciate it. So that's a little bit of news. I've kind of mentioned it in the last couple streams. And let me look at the chat and see if I'm missing anything. So again, thank you guys very much for the super chats. That is awesome. Dallas fan, that is Ralph with Honeywell Refrigerants. Ralph is always willing to answer your guys' questions. He always comes in here and he's always willing to give you guys information. Ralph does work for Honeywell Refrigerants. I have no affiliation with them, but Ralph has been a very genuine dude, has always answered my questions and given me information. So if you guys have any refrigerant related questions, I would highly suggest you guys reach out to Ralph. I'm going to post his email in the chat right now, and just reach out to him and he will be more than willing to answer your guys' questions. Okay. Let's go ahead and start this off with a bang, right? So I got lots of questions about the last video that I released, about using R22 refrigerant. So I worked on a beer walk-in cooler and I used R22 refrigerant. I have been very vocal in the fact that I still use R22 refrigerant to this day. Now, let me preface that by saying my customers request that I use R22 refrigerant. I get lots of questions. I get a lot of views from outside of the country. Marcus M, thank you very much, man. Really appreciate that super chat. That is awesome. Okay, thank you, dude. I'm blown away by you guys. That I really appreciate these things. Sorry, it kind of sidetracked me a little bit, but I do really appreciate these things, these super chats, okay? Understand something, guys. I know everybody's going through crazy times right now, okay? I more than appreciate the super chats. Those are awesome. There is other ways to support me. The super chat is amazing. Thank you very much, and I'm not discrediting that. But if you guys don't have the money, don't feel obligated to donate via super chats, okay? You can do so. You can also support the stream in many other ways. You can simply watch the videos. That helps my stream. That helps my videos, right? I know this is hard, but watch through the commercials. Let YouTube pay me, because YouTube pays me if you guys watch through the commercials. I know that's hard, but that's another way that you guys can do it. Also, like I mentioned already, you guys can click or use the offer code Big Picture, one word, with True Tech Tools. That's another way that you guys can support the stream without having to pay money out of your pockets. Now, if you choose to do so via super chats or in the show notes of my videos, there's other ways, then so be it. And thank you very much, but it is not expected. Okay. Thank you guys. Anyways, kind of got sidetracked there, but about R22 refrigerant. So my customers have all been I've informed every one of my customers, hey, do you want, and I give them options and I say, look, here's the deal. I'll educate them. There's some alternatives to R22 refrigerant, and I educate them on the fact that R22 refrigerant is going away. The prices will be going up as time goes on. And there's some alternatives to R22. There's some things we have to do to make these alternatives work, such as changing the oil, changing the gaskets. There's some options without changing the oil, that kind of stuff. I give that information to my customers and I let my customers make the decisions, okay? I work with a lot of national chain restaurants, okay? And most of the time when I give them that information, they choose to stick with the OEM refrigerants when they can, okay? And so with my customer's blessing, I still use R22 refrigerant. Now, obviously, as we get closer and closer to the complete phase out of R22, which is going to be a long time coming, but since last year, they completely halted importation and or production in the United States of R22. So you can't import R22 refrigerant into the United States anymore, and you can't produce new R22 refrigerant in the United States anymore. The prices will go up, okay? So we have to do what we can to educate our customers and let them make those decisions. So with that being said, when it comes to anything, when it comes to replacing a piece of equipment, I don't tell my customer, you have to replace this. I give them a repair quote and I let them make the decision. Here's a replacement quote. Here's a repair quote. This is the warranty you get with a replacement. This is the warranty you get with a repair. And I let them make the decisions. The same thing goes with an R22 conversion. Now, with some other refrigerants, such as 404A, we don't have as many options when it comes to that, okay? And sometimes when it comes to new installations, we're technically supposed to replace 404A, which is a medium temperature and low temperature refrigerant. Again, you guys, I see these super chats coming in. Thank you so very much, guys. This is awesome. Tommy, thank you very much. Humberto, I think I pronounced that right. Rodriguez, thank you so very much, man. I really appreciate it, okay? So I give the information to the customers and I let the customers make the decision, okay? So at this time, I continue to use R22, but if my customers decided that they wanted me to use an alternative, then I would use an alternative, okay? So that's why I continue to use R22. There's nothing wrong with the alternatives, okay? Each alternative has its certain requirements that you have to follow, and I would highly suggest that you lean on the manufacturer of those refrigerants, such as Honeywell refrigerants or whoever's refrigerant you're going to use, and find out the requirements to properly use that alternative refrigerant, okay? As time goes on, yes, of course, I'm going to urge my customers, hey, the price is going up, we should consider doing this, you know, and that kind of stuff, okay? But I'm always going to leave it at my customer's decision because I am not the decision maker. I have not made a decision to completely stop using a refrigerant because if my customer wants it, then, you know, we can continue to use it, but the price may be expensive, or here's the requirements that we have to do to change over to this particular refrigerant, okay? One thing that I'll say about alternative refrigerants, there are a couple different alternative refrigerants, and I'm not going to name which ones I'm talking about, but there's certain ones out there that are better than others, okay? There's certain ones that are worse than others. You need to make sure that you follow the proper installation practices, okay? I would highly suggest that you contact the manufacturer of said refrigerant directly and ask them their installation procedures versus leaning on the supply house. And when I say leaning on the supply house, I mean sometimes the counter guys at the supply house will tell you, yeah, you can just mix this refrigerant. I'm going to flat out tell you right now, there is legally no refrigerant that you can mix together legally. Okay, you are not a chemist. It is not your job to mix refrigerants. Am I saying it won't work? No, but here's the problem. Once you mix refrigerants, once you dump some alternative refrigerant on top of R22 refrigerant, you don't know what you just made. And the next technician that comes after you doesn't know what you just made either. And the system may be adversely affected later on down the line, and who knows what's in there. It makes just a confusing mess, okay? So don't ever mix refrigerants, okay? Now that I'm off my refrigerant high horse, we'll get on to the rest of the stream. Again, questions and caps lock, okay? So Terry, you said paying $335 for a 30-pound drum of R22 and costing $11.50 a pound and you're charging $80 a pound is wrong. Well, There's a lot that goes into marking up refrigerants and prices of refrigerants. So I'm not going to tell you how much I charge for refrigerant, but some companies, like for instance, companies that do flat rate pricing. Okay, flat rate pricing is a different type. I do time and materials. So I mark my refrigerant up a certain amount, I mark my materials up a certain amount, and I charge a certain labor fee because I do commercial. Okay, but on the residential side, they do flat rate. So to understand that if they charge you a certain amount for refrigerant, there might be other stuff built into that pricing structure. So I'm not going to condemn someone for their R22 prices at this moment in time, okay? Because there's a lot that goes into it. But yes, there certainly is companies out there that are gouging people when it comes to parts and prices. But you also have to understand that there's companies that aren't, and they just have their pricing structure different. So they may charge, they don't necessarily charge per pound for refrigerant. They just charge a set price to put refrigerant in your system. Yeah, it can be kind of difficult, okay? But I'm not going to condemn someone for their pricing right now because it's really simple, okay? If someone has a price that is unreasonable, then the customer can choose to go elsewhere. If someone has published their price and the customer has accepted their price, and then after the work and service is done and everything was quoted and laid out in plain English, and the customer bitches about the price after the fact, the customer has no argument there and the customer is at the wrong. If everything was laid out in front of them and they chose to accept the quoted amount, and then the customer after the fact wants to bitch about that price, then the customer's in the wrong and not necessarily the company, okay? Now, the company maybe their prices are too high, but the customer accepted it. And for the customer to come in after the fact and bitch about the price, that's a little difficult, okay? So as a customer, you need to do your due diligence. Don't just look at the first quote. Scrutinize invoices, scrutinize quotes, ask questions. Don't be a punk about it, but ask questions, okay? There's nothing wrong with getting multiple quotes. But remember, in my opinion, the cheapest quote is not always the best quote, okay? The most expensive quote and the middle quote are the two to look at. The middle quote and the most expensive quote, and then you say, what are the differences on service that they're giving me? Evaluate it that way. So for a customer to bitch after the fact, that's kind of messed up, okay? But that's just my opinion. So, all right, let's see what else we got going on here. Let me see. What is the best compressor brand? Compressor brand, Jeff the maintenance man, thank you very much for that. What do they call those? Sticker or whatever they call them. Thanks, bud. Little doggy with a karate thing on his head or whatever. Those stickers are funny. I always like to leave the almost, if I try to find the most inappropriate sticker that can be taken so many different ways. I know YouTube does a really good job of limiting those stickers, but I do like to find the ones that are the most like, that one could be taken the wrong way, because those are kind of funny to me. So what's the best brand of compressor? It really depends, okay? Every compressor out there has a decent quality. It really depends on the installation and the proper installation of said compressor. So any compressor can fail if someone doesn't maintain the equipment properly. Same thing goes for manufacturer's brand. I get emails all the time, people saying, what's the best brand of air conditioner? It really depends on a couple different things. Number one, how was it installed? Okay. Number two, what is your normal service company? Do you have a regular service company that you use? What are they most comfortable working on? So my personal preference on commercial equipment, I like to work on Linux commercial equipment. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean, and Carrier equipment's probably number two, York equipment's probably number three, Train equipment's probably number four. York and Train are probably equal, okay? But it doesn't mean that York is worse. It just means that I'm really comfortable working on Linux and Carrier because I work on them all the time, okay? So it's not really fair for me to go out there and say York and Train are horrible because they have lots of issues. Well, maybe I'm just not as comfortable working on them. So York and Train equipment are a little bit more difficult because they're not second nature for me. Okay. That can be said about almost anything. What car do you like working on the best? Well, if you talk to a Mercedes mechanic, he's going to say maybe a Mercedes. Okay. If you talk to a Chevy mechanic, he's used to working on a Chevy. So if you cross them, then they might both hate the other cars. All right. So it really depends on what your service company is so used to working on. Okay. So when it comes to the best compressor out there, it really depends on how the compressor is installed. The compressor does one thing, okay? It pumps refrigerant. It moves refrigerant. It changes the state. That's all it does. It just moves refrigerant, okay? So do I have a preference? In certain situations, I like a Copeland scroll compressor. In certain situations, I like a Trane reciprocating, or Tecumseh reciprocating compressor. I mean, it just depends, okay? So I don't have a preference. I can't say which one's better over the other. Each one has a good use in certain situations, okay? Let's see what else we got going on here. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys give the stream a thumbs up. It definitely helps out the stream for sure. Yeah, I like the Prodigy board too. The Prodigy board, I'm very used to working on it. It's very comfortable for me, okay? I also, but it really is just about what you're used to working on. I talked to some technicians that love the York Prodigy model, okay? And that's just their model of units. I don't care for the York Prodigy, but it's because I don't work on it very often. Okay, when you work on something so often, you tend to know the problems in your head. So when you get a complaint, you're like, oh, I know where the leak's going to be. If there's a refrigerant leak on a Linux Prodigy unit or a Linux L series unit, I know it's going to be on the condenser return bins, or it's going to be on the evaporator TXV's end bell, or possibly the evaporator return bins. That's the most common place for a refrigerant leak on a Linux Prodigy unit or an L series unit. Okay, if we're working on a carrier unit, the most common place for a refrigerant leak is probably going to be lines that have rubbed together or a crack on the discharge line. Because I'm so used to working on them, I know what happens in them. Okay, so it's just about what you're used to working on. Let me see what else we got. Oh, wow. The movie and song already popped up. So the song, yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm kind of curious if anybody gets that. Let me see. For $198 a pound, that refrigerant better dance for me when you're trying to... Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. So, let me see. Jason Kang. So you kind of asked a question about COVID and what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about that because I do have that on my list of things to talk about. So what's the state of me when it comes to COVID and the virus and all this stuff? So... my wife is still laid off. She's a waitress. Okay. So she still doesn't have a job. She's been at home with my kids. My kids still aren't in school. I live in Southern California. We are doing okay. All right. We got a little bit of cabin fever going on, and, we've been at home a lot. We've been trying to go for walks around the block, that kind of stuff. As far as my company goes, all of my employees until last week have been laid off. I brought one of my employees back last week, and I brought another one back this week. So I currently have 2 employees working right now. Just brought one back actually today, so he technically hasn't worked because we just kind of went through some talking in the office and stuff. But we are slowly starting to pick up. Some service calls have been coming in, restaurants here and there. Calls are getting a little bit more common. I went from maybe 3 calls a week, and I'm probably getting 4 to 5 6 calls a week, something like that. It's going to slowly build back up. But I went from 6 to 9 service calls a day to right away 3 calls a week, then 4 to 5 a week. So we're slowly picking up. It's going to be a while. Technically, California has still got a lot of restrictions. The particular county that I live in is Riverside County, but I work in Riverside, San Bernardino, Orange County as the 3 counties that I work in. There's still some restrictions in there. Riverside County and San Bernardino County just lifted their requirements for social distancing and masks. So you technically don't have to have them. They're not going to be enforced, but they strongly suggest you do. Restaurants technically aren't allowed to open up yet, although I posted on some of my social medias, whether or not you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, HVACR videos. Myself and my wife went away for the day. We just drove up to our local mountain range, and we actually found a restaurant that allowed us to come eat on their patio. And they served us. They brought us beer out on the patio, and we sat down, and it was a very enjoyable experience. There was probably about 4 or 5 other families there. It was a little mountain resort. I'm not going to reveal the location, and I didn't on social media either, just to protect them, because I don't know if they were technically following the rules. But I am ready to kind of get back to whatever this new normal is going to be. It's very interesting what we're going to go through, because I have noticed that there is all kinds of reports coming from all over the country that some areas, the schools are going to go back only like 3 days a week. You're going to do like rotating schedules for the kids. They're going to go to year round, all kinds of stuff. We have not had any official announcements from our schools. I have two daughters that are in, one's going into high school and one's in elementary school. We have not heard official announcements as to how their school schedule is going to work, but this whole thing is still affecting me very much. I'm just as scared as everybody else as far as the economy and stuff. I'm just as skeptical as everybody else as far as what to believe, what not to believe. I don't have any great words of encouragement except for the fact that we as HVACR service technicians are needed and will be needed for the rest of our lives. We work in a trade that is a vital trade. Refrigeration and air conditioning is something that is needed and will not go away. So rest assured that you will have a job one way or another. Now, whether or not your job is going to change in the way that you have to do things, sure, we have to be willing to adapt. But in one way or another, you will be able to be employed in refrigeration and air conditioning for the rest of your life, so long as you can adapt to changes. Okay, we are a vital, essential trade. We are needed. Okay, so like I said, one way or another, we're going to be employed. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, let me see what else. Sterling Archer comes from France. He asked if we get Italian chillers. Every once in a while, some gentlemen post on social media about working on some foreign refrigeration equipment or chillers. Yeah, Italian and different things like that. I don't work on anything Italian, but some other people do, and I do see it every once in a while, Sterling. So, all right. Great question. Peter, a lot of people have been asking me, what kind of striker did I use? You noticed in the last one of my videos, I need to post a link to that. I believe it looks like a barbecue lighter, and I found it at my supply house. I believe it's made by Clip Light, I think, and it looks like a barbecue igniter. It has a push button. It's black, and it just looks like you're starting a barbecue thing. It's just like a little spark electrode, you know? That's what I've been using. It's all right. It's something I'm kind of getting used to. So I'll definitely try to post a link to that. And that way you guys can, find it wherever you want. So I'll try to find a link and try to post it in one of these videos. So let me see what else. What HVAC systems do I normally work on, like the most common systems? So I work on package units. For the most part, I work on Carrier and Linux for the most part are the most common. Train is probably the third. Train and York or Johnson Controls are probably the tied. So I work on a lot of Carrier and Linux package equipment. So I'm a commercial refrigeration and air conditioning technician. I don't work on a lot of split systems where the condenser's one place and the evaporator's another. The more residential guys work on that stuff. There's also commercial split systems, but I don't work on a lot of them. So let me see. So Alex G has a book recommend. He's asking me for my book recommendations. Okay, so the book that I recommend for any kind of refrigeration service, again, I probably need to talk to the gentleman and say what's up, because I probably sold more of these books than a lot of people. But Commercial Refrigeration by Air Conditioning Technicians by Mr. Dick Wers. This is the book to learn refrigeration if you already have a basic understanding of air conditioning. Even if you don't, this is an amazing book. So Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians by Mr. Dick Wers. There is a link to this book in the show notes of this video, this YouTube video, and almost every one of my other videos is a link to that book. I would highly recommend that book for anybody wanting to learn about refrigeration, if you have a basic understanding of air conditioning. But even if you don't have a basic understanding of air conditioning, that book does a really good job for a beginner. It is an amazing book. For a beginner coming into the trade, again, I have no affiliation other than being friends with the person. I would check out Mr. Brian Orr's website, HVAC School, or it's hvacrschool.com. Check out his website. He has tech tips that he does daily. He has YouTube videos, and he has podcasts that he does. And he is an amazing resource for the beginning HVACR service technician, whether it is residential air conditioning all the way up to commercial stuff. Brian is a great person. He has a lot of great information on there. I would highly suggest checking out Brian Orr's website, hvacrschool.com. Okay. Don't be confused with me. I am HVACR Videos, but Brian and I technically do not have any affiliation. We are not the same person. We oftentimes both get mistaken for each other, but we are different people. So HVACR Wiz, how old am I? I am going to be turning 37 in June. So I am still somewhat young. I'm getting old though. So let me see. What calls do I like best? In the end, after they're all said and done, I like the service calls like the one that I just made a video about last Monday. Okay, I made a video. I released 2 videos this last week. The first one was, it was a, where do I have it right here? I have it written down. Why is my videos not where they need to be? Late night walk-in freezer call. So I had a late night walk-in freezer call. It was a very frustrating one. It was on a Saturday night. My wife and I were just about to leave the house. I went out there. One thing led to another. I got there. I found a tripped breaker. I went through it, tested the system for grounds, did not find any shorts to ground, found that went downstairs to the evaporator, found that the evaporator drain pan was iced up, kind of dug into that a little bit, realized that was going to be a long hole dive, crazy thing, kind of went back into the system, ended up finding out that the compressor was shorted to ground. It had a very slight short to ground. So in that situation, yes, I realize an insulation tester might have helped me, and I'm going to touch on that in a minute. So the calls, after that was all said and done, that was a 15-hour call. I was on site for 15 hours. By the time I went and picked up a compressor, opened up a supply house, came back out, I got home at 5 in the morning. That was an all-night call. It was a head scratcher. I ended up coming back a couple days later, changing the dryer, changing what oil I could. It was a head scratcher. It was frustrating. I was exhausted. But when it's all said and done, those are some of my favorite calls, because the head scratchers, the really difficult ones, when they're all said and done, once you figure them out, most of the time you look back at them and you go, oh, yeah, that wasn't too bad. Or, oh, I could have done this differently. I could have made it easier. Okay. So my favorite calls are probably the most difficult calls. Usually not at the moment, because Sunday morning when I got home, I hated that call. That was the worst call in the world. But by the time I woke up Sunday at 10 a.m. and started reflecting on it, I was like, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. That was kind of fun. I got to do this. And, it's kind of a challenge, and it's kind of intriguing, and, the mysteries are fun. So I really enjoy those. Okay. So with that being said, I had a bunch of questions about why did I not use an insulation tester to test that compressor? So certainly, had I used an insulation tester or a mega ohm meter to test the windings of that compressor, I probably would have seen some discrepancies in the compressor windings, okay? But something to understand. If you just Google search, just ask the Google, Copeland mega ohm test or Copeland insulation test, you will find an article written by Copeland probably 25 to 30 years ago that says Copeland does not recommend mega ohm or insulation tests on their scroll compressors or their compressors in general without doing multiple tests, okay? So what Copeland has determined is that an insulation test can give you a false positive for a grounded compressor or failed insulation, okay? Especially if it's marginal, because moisture in your refrigerant can cause a poor insulation reading, okay? So moisture in your refrigerant can lead to a faulty insulation test on your compressor windings, okay? So when you take a mega ohm meter, you test the insulation resistance, and you're testing the insulation on the electrical windings of that compressor, and you're testing to see if the insulation has failed. Because if you think about it, if the windings on the compressor aren't insulated, then technically they're sitting in a conductive fluid that's going to short to ground. Your compressor's full of oil, the motor is sitting in oil, okay? But because the compressor windings are insulated, it doesn't short to ground. So when the insulation starts to fail, and things that cause the insulation to fail, ironically, are moisture and things like that, okay? But you can get a false positive as far as a mega ohm reading or an insulation test if your system has a lot of moisture in it, okay? And oftentimes you can find that if you get a bad reading, you can do an oil change, you can change the dryers, you can change the refrigerant, you can pull a proper vacuum on the system, and the insulation reading will go up and get better, okay? So I personally don't own an insulation tester or a mega ohm meter. I probably should get one, but it's important to know that Copeland recommends using a mega ohm reader or a meter or an insulation test over time. So what they would like you to do is test the system over a set period of time. If you use it on regular intervals, it'd be much easier to know if you have a problem. But to use just an insulation tester for a one-stop shop to say, yeah, this compressor's got really weak insulation. Well, how do you know there's not moisture in the system causing that bad reading? Okay, so I would encourage all of you guys to go Google search, just Google search Copeland insulation test, scroll compressor, something like that. And you'll find this article written by Copeland many years ago that says exactly what I just told you, okay? So it's important that if you're going to use an insulation test, unless it's just like a complete direct short to ground, okay? If it's just poor insulation, you might not know if it's just bad refrigerant, or I shouldn't say bad refrigerant, but just a moisture laden system. Okay, so that's very important to understand. Let's see what I'm missing. I know I missed a lot in the chat. When I start talking, oftentimes I zone out and I just kind of ignore the chat. So yes, there are also exposed connection posts in the compressor. Yes, there is. Okay, so yeah, there is a link for the Dick Wurz book in there. Ways of charging Dion. It really depends on what you're working on, okay? So I would highly suggest checking out the book, Commercial Refrigeration for Air Conditioning Technicians. That will help you in charging systems. That will help you to describe that, okay? I've certainly got several videos out there. Now, the next thing I'm going to get into is, well, first off, I'm going to ask a question to the chat. Has anybody guessed, I don't know if they've popped up yet, has anybody guessed the movie quote, or has anybody guessed the song or the song artist? I'm kind of curious if you have, so I'm going to wait in the chat for a minute. While we're waiting for that question to be answered, Naka Fire and Security, I can answer that one. How long have I been sponsored by Parker Sporlin? I am a year. May 1st is officially my sponsorship by Parker Sporlin. So that is my question on that. While I'm waiting for people to respond, I was kind of curious if anybody got the movie quote or the song quote. So long as work permitting, I think I can announce this. I don't think I'm going to ruin anything by saying it. Yeah, the movie is Goonies and the song is Hall & Oates. She's Gone. That's right. See, there's my 70s yacht rock with the Hall & Oates and the Goonies. Come on. Who doesn't like the Goonies? Good gosh. Amazing movie, right? So I'm going to go ahead and make an announcement right now. Hopefully I don't piss you guys off, Adam, Joe. But I am officially going to become a somewhat normal member of the HVAC Overtime Show on Friday nights, okay? So I'd highly suggest that so long as I can get off work in time, I'm officially going to become a part of that show. So I will be on that show, hopefully on a somewhat regular basis until they fire me. I have to say that I am officially getting 99% ownership of that. No, I'm just kidding. So, but for real though, I'm going to be on that show on a more regular basis. So hopefully you guys come over and check out that show. Okay. There should be a link popping up in the show notes of this, or the moderator bot, or even maybe Justin, you can post a link to the HVAC Overtime Show. You guys can go subscribe to that. So work permitting, I'll be there Friday nights and we'll do that. Okay. Let me see what else I'm missing in here. So, how common are heat pumps where I'm at compared to gas systems? HVAC kid. Heat pumps are pretty common. We have them in California. You know what? No, I'd say probably like 80% heat pumps, 20%. I'm sorry, 80% gas heat, 20% heat pumps in Southern California. Southern California, we have a very stressed electrical grid as far as power consumption. So they tend to want to push towards gas, but ironically, the yuppie libtards are really going to the whole getting rid of gas and all that stuff for environmental reasons. So yeah, whatever. Let me see what else I'm missing in here. How do I determine if I need to change the refrigerant in the system? That's not really something I can tell you over here, okay? If your refrigerant is contaminated, I would highly suggest changing it. But there's a lot. That's a very loaded question, so I can't really answer that one right here. Okay, there you go, the HVAC overtime show. So go check that out. Okay, guys. Let me see. Let me see what I'm missing here. All right, so that's on that. And I am going to go ahead and go to my list of stuff to talk about. I have to say, so for whatever reason, I have getting a crap ton of advertising requests on my channel lately. And I don't know what I did to get this, but it was so funny because on a personal note, I've said to some of my friends that I really want like a certain type of advertisement as a joke, right? And I got this guy that emailed me last week because he has a dating website. And I thought it was so funny. I'm not going to let them advertise with me, but it was just so funny because it was a dating website. And it was just so obscene the way that the dude pitched the dating website to me. Like, it was so like chauvinistic, I guess you can say, right? The dude was like, yeah, we're going to teach men how women think and how to interpret women's, like, and I was just like, what the, like, for some dude to really send out an email that says that he wants to advertise on my channel because he has a dating website that teaches men how women, like, you're a nutcase to think like that. It just made me kind of laugh. Like, I've made it, guys, because I'm getting these funky ass advertisements, right? So, all right. How much does the level in an accumulator vary during the summer to the winter as long as there is no leaks? Steve, I'm assuming you mean a receiver, because the level in accumulator is going to change depending on the demand and the load of the system. So you're going to have accumulator grabs the liquid refrigerant to protect it from getting to the compressor. But a receiver, I'm assuming that's what you mean by that question. So on a receiver, the level is going to change from the winter to the summer, again, depending on the load and the demand of the system, okay? So on a receiver, it's a storage vessel for liquid refrigerant on a TXV refrigeration system, okay? And the more refrigerant that the system needs, the lower the level is going to get in the receiver. So if there's a heavier load, the receiver is going to get lower in the receiver. Now, also, again, I'm making an assumption on your question that you had asked. In the winter time on some refrigeration systems, we have head pressure control valves that require extra refrigerant that is typically stored in the receiver all summer long. So therefore, the level in the receiver is going to get even lower in the winter time. Again, I hope I didn't butcher your question there, Steve. So let me see what else. Let me see. You asked about this on the latest video. How important is torque specs? You've rarely used it in the industry. Storm, great question, and I'm going to address the elephant in the room. So I'm pretty sarcastic if you guys don't get it in my videos, okay? So I joke oftentimes about my torque wrench clicking. Did you hear it? Click, because it's in my elbow, guys. I'm not discrediting a torque wrench. A torque wrench is a very important tool for someone that is not comfortable and not familiar with how tight to tighten a flare nut, okay? I am going out on a limb. I am taking a shortcut when I say that I personally don't use a torque wrench. It's not that I think torque wrenches aren't a great use of time, okay? Torque wrenches are a valuable tool and an asset to anybody, okay? Personally, I learned the hard way. So I would suggest that every one of you guys uses a torque wrench, okay? Now, personally, and again, I'm taking a shortcut. I know how tight a flare nut needs to be. I know when a flare nut is over tightened, okay? I may be wrong. I'd be very interested for someone to come out with a torque wrench and show me how tight you're supposed to tighten a flare, and then for me to tighten it to where I think it should be tightened, and I'd like to know the discrepancy between the two. But again, I'm being sarcastic when I say that the torque wrench on my elbow clicks, okay? I'm doing that for the keyboard warriors that email me and say, oh my gosh, did you tighten that to proper specs? Did you use this? With your question, and I'm not knocking you for that. That was just, it brought up a good point in my head. So as far as how to tighten down electrical connections, okay? They do make tools, and oftentimes on compressor contactors and any kind of contactor, they usually have a torque spec on there. And you can buy a special screwdriver that you can set in feet-pounds per inch of torque, right? And you can turn it and it clicks when you get to whatever the setting is, so that way you know it's properly tightened down, okay? So there's nothing wrong with using a torque wrench. You're not a lesser of a tech for using a torque wrench. I guess I'm being ignorant and sarcastic in the fact that I don't use a torque wrench just because I've made enough mistakes and I've screwed up enough flare nuts that I finally figured out how tight and how tight is an over tight flare nut. So there's a perfect spot on a flare nut. If you go too loose, it's going to leak. If you over tighten, it's going to leak tomorrow. And what I mean by that is if you over tighten a flare nut over time, that flare nut's going to back off and then it's going to leak. Okay. So you're going to stretch the metal out and then it's going to back off and then it's going to leak. So it's very important. Personally, on flare nuts, I'm going to go against a lot of people that don't believe this, but I personally choose to use nylog, okay? And I think I showed it in my most recent video where I flare the mating surface on the back of the flare nut where it meets the flare cone. I put some oil or some nylog on there. I spin it. I lubricate it. That's the most important part of using any kind of lubricant on a flare nut is lubricating the surface of the back of the flare and the back of the flare nut where they meet. Because if you don't, what you will notice if you tighten down a flare, when you tighten it down, what you'll notice is when you tighten the flare nut, the copper will twist. And the reason why the copper twists is because there's no lubrication there, and the friction is allowing the copper to grab that copper and twist it. So it's not making a good seal. So if you put a little lubrication on there, some nylog or some refrigerant oil, you'll find that it spins a lot freer. Okay. Now I personally choose to use nylog on my threads too, but I don't overdo it. I don't want to get any nylog in the system, even though I know that it's not going to hurt the system. I still don't want to fill it with nylog. Okay. So I just kind of put a little dabble on the threads, tighten it down and call it a day. Wait till my flare nut, or my torque wrench clicks in my elbow. And then that's perfect. Okay. Let me see what else. Yeah, a lot of people need my torque wrench. So, let me see what else. What is my hopeful career path? Do I hope to be an HVACR technician forever? So currently right now, I run a business together with my father. My father is kind of semi-retired. I think he would retire today if I let him. As far as my goals about the future of where I want to be in HVAC, we currently run a business together. I really don't want to grow my business any bigger than it is, or our business, okay? We currently have 4 technicians. I think at the max I would ever want to go, the max I've ever been is like 6 service technicians, okay? I am very much the worst business person in the world when it comes to that kind of stuff, okay? And my dad the same, because we are very concerned about our customers and their view of us. We are not so much concerned about the profits, which I feel like we probably should be more concerned about the profits and more about making money. But we have conscience. And, when it comes to that, we don't look at our business as this thing that's going to make us $1 million. We look at our business as something that is going to get us through. It's going to make us a little bit of money, and we're going to get to have fun while we're doing it. Okay. So that certainly is not the best business practice. Again, I am not an ideal person to base your business off of. Okay. They're guaranteed there's a million things I'm doing wrong. Where do I want to be? I just want to continue fixing things. My passion is fixing stuff. I think that it would be fun to become a teacher. I think that would be something very interesting, but I'm very, very discouraged by the pay that teachers get, okay? I realize there's bad teachers out there. I realize there's good teachers out there. But what they're paying teachers is absolutely ridiculous. It's not enough. So I've been offered positions as an HVAC teacher, and I politely decline them, but first off, because they would conflict with my normal business, but they don't pay enough. I'm sorry. I can make more if I went to work for someone as a service technician than most teachers out there are making. And that's sad. Teachers, now I realize that, we're not going to get political about this, but teachers need to make more money. On the flip side, teachers need to be held accountable. If you're a bad teacher, you need to get your ass kicked to the curb. Okay. You shouldn't be in a classroom teaching students if you're a washed up service tech. I'm sorry. Okay. And unfortunately, there's a lot of teachers out there that are washed up service technicians. Okay. But there's also a lot of teachers out there that are great, great teachers and amazing teachers, and they can get stuff out in a certain way, and they have a great way of teaching things. I think that a lot of the schools are doing themselves a disservice by not hiring some of these younger service technicians that are great mechanics and great service techs, because Get them before they become a washed up service tech. Get them when they're still new and teach them how to teach. Pay them a good salary, okay? Not just some half-assed decent salary, because as a service tech here in California, you can make damn near $100,000, if not more, depending on the trade you're working in, right? But as a teacher, you can make like 60 grand, okay? That's stupid. That's ridiculous, because you're going to be teaching techs that within 5 years of leaving your program, they're going to be making almost 100 grand. That's not right. Okay. So end rant on the political stuff, but I would love to teach, but the money's not there. Okay. So let me see what else we got going on here. Is there a difference between Cold Zone and Heatcraft walk-ins? Yes, they're two different manufacturers. Cold Zone is owned by Heatcraft RPD. I'm sorry. Cold Zone is owned by Russell, which is owned by, they're a conglomerate. They own Carrier, actually, right? I think so. No. Damn it. There's so many buyouts. Heatcraft is actually owned by Lennox now. Yeah, I think Russell's owned by Carrier, I think. And I think Heatcraft is owned by Lennox now. So they're two different companies. There is a difference between their products and different things. So do I have any hobbies? My passion and my hobby is camping and outdoors activities. I don't get to do it enough. I think I've said that a million times. If I could go backpacking and disappear in the mountains for a week, I would do so today. But my business and stuff kind of makes it really difficult to do that. But my passion is being, I like to camp, but I don't like to camp in a place where I have a tent 20 feet from me. I like to camp in a place where I'm out in the middle of nowhere. My dream actually is, I'm gonna set a lofty dream, is to hike the entire Pacific Crest Trail without stopping. Meaning that I'm not going to do it in one section at a time. I would love to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, and I would love to hike the Appalachian Trail without stopping. That would be a goal of mine. It's not very practical. I kind of wish I would have done that as a younger teen, because financially, it's just not something I can take, 6 months off work. I just can't do that. So it's just one of those things. I would love to do that, though. That's my hobby and my passion. Let's see. Yeah, Russell is Lennox now, which owns Cold Zone, and Heatcraft. Oh, is Russell Lennox not? I don't know, dude. My mind is blown. So, who thinks we need HVAC stickers? I'm not the whole thing about stickers. I will say I am the worst when it comes to business, guys, but I am getting so much closer. I finally decided to go ahead and do all the work, and I will be releasing these shirts very soon. I'm working on a website. If anybody knows anybody that does website design, I'm not a millionaire. Okay. So I can't do anything crazy, but I need a website design. I'm looking for that. Send me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. But, yeah, I'm finally got the whole business license and all that crap to be able to officially sell my shirts. Maybe I'll do stickers. I don't know. We'll see, but the shirts for sure. So, the shirts, let me see. I'll transition this over to the rear cam and you guys will see this too. So, you guys have seen the front. Obviously has the snowflake, and I'll transition it over to the rear cam and I'll show you the back of the shirt. For those that haven't seen it, that's the back of the shirt, and it says Big Picture Diagnoses. Sorry, I did that. I messed up. So that's the back of the shirt, and it shows Big Picture Diagnoses. I will make these available soon on my website, and they'll be for sale and all that stuff. So soon we'll be doing that. That'll be coming sooner than later, hopefully. I know I've been saying that for a long time, but I did finally figure out some of the details, so that will be coming very soon. So, let me see what else we got going on. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to get to my list of things to talk about here. Okay, so, perfect vacuum on repairs. Guys, I stress this enough. I try to promote proper refrigeration practices as much as possible. You guys need to do your due diligence, okay? Purge with nitrogen when you can. Pull a proper vacuum when you can. Fix every leak in the system when you can. In refrigeration, that's not always practical, especially here in the States. I know in other countries you guys have all kinds of regulations, but here in the States we actually don't. And they're rolling back on a lot of regulations too, even on the bigger systems, okay? So, we do our best, and I promote to do the best job that you can, but I also try to promote what's practical. Okay, I don't want to be this person out there that tells you need to do everything the certain way. You need to pull this proper sub 200 micron vacuum every time, and your decay test needs to pass the 500 micron level every time. Guys, that is not practical when you're dealing with refrigeration, especially when you're doing retrofit or system repairs. It's just not practical. You are not going to pull a perfect vacuum. Oftentimes, when people post on social media that they had a perfect vacuum, I'd love to see their rig, because I bet you anything there's something wrong about it, okay? Every vacuum that I have never pulled the perfect vacuum, and every vacuum that I try to pull, I see issues. There's moisture contamination. There's nitrogen still stuck in the system. There's refrigerant boiling out of the oil. There's all kinds of things. So you're never going to be perfect, but just do your best. Strive for excellence, understanding what's practical and what's not, okay? This little R290 refrigerator that I show on my live streams all the time, and I've showed conversion to 134, and I put it in my garage and all that stuff. I've left the vacuum pump running on that thing for 3 full days. There's no leaks in that system, and I still have never obtained a perfect vacuum on it, okay? Especially when you're dealing with these reach-in coolers and reach-in refrigerators. And I hear about these people working on VRF systems, and they talk about how the manufacturer wants them to pull this perfect vacuum and perfect decay test. I call bullshit. I really do. I call bullshit on these perfect vacuums. You show me. I would love to nitpick your system. Maybe I'm wrong. I very well could be wrong, but I call bullshit on these perfect evacuations. I really do. So, how can you get, at 15 years old, almost 16, get hands-on training for HVACR? HVAC kid, man, that is a hard one, dude. At 15 years old, the problem, like for instance, here in California, we have so many labor laws that I couldn't even bring a 15-year-old to my company to work with me for free because the labor laws would kill me. Sterling, I think I remember that. I vaguely remember that. I'm going to look back in your emails and see it again, but I think I remember that shirt. Yeah. When hiring a new tech, what is more important, attitude or skill? It's an equal thing between the two when I'm hiring a new technician. It really has to do with the interview process and their personality. That's going to get them to the point of the interview where I'm going to test their skills, take them for a ride along, see what they have to offer as far as their skills go. So I would say that your personality is going to be the number one thing that we're going to look at. And then once you pass the personality test, then we're going to, evaluate you on your hands-on skills. So it's not just, you can't just be the best tech in the world, but have a horrible personality, because we're dealing with customers all day long. So especially in restaurant refrigeration. So what was the most iced up walk-in I've ever worked on? I've probably shown it in videos several times where the ice is built up all the way around the fan motor, all the way up to the evaporator fan blades, probably about 12 inches of ice in the front and maybe, 4 or 5 inches in the back. Those are pretty iced up coils. So, yeah, do me a favor, guys, type your questions in the chat. So a perfect vacuum is sub-micron levels. So, in between like 100 microns and 150 microns, and with a decay test, meaning that when you shut the vacuum pump off and the pressures rise, because they're going to rise. There's nothing that's 100% leak free, guys. Systems are going to leak no matter what, okay? You can never make it completely leak free when you start looking at the microns in the system, okay? But if you can get a vacuum that holds you pull down to about 150 microns and you have proper micron gauge placement and proper evacuation setup, and your decay test doesn't exceed 200 to 300 microns, I would call that a pretty perfect vacuum. But you're not going to see that, okay? Especially on retrofit and repairs. Maybe on new installation, maybe in a lab for sure, but not out in the field. So, yeah, please hit the like button, guys. Okay, so the next question, I want to cover this right now really quick. I'm going to show you guys a little clip real quick, okay? And I'm going to talk about this because I had a lot of questions about this. And let me pop this over, and let me turn this off, and I'm going to transition this over real quick. And we're going to play this audio for you real quick, and then we're going to talk about this. Just a quick tip here. You can't trust the colors on recovery tanks, because if you look at this one, red is liquid. If you look at this one, blue is liquid, red is vapor. 2 recovery tanks,
For whatever reason, different manufacturers use different colors. So you can never trust that. You got to read. So don't just look at the colors and think you got liquid and vapor. Always pay attention to that.
So the reason why I bring that up is because I get a lot of questions about that. And I happen to have a dip tube right here from a recovery tank. Okay. And I showed you that on that particular recovery tank, it was flip-flopped. So on this one right here, blue, I don't know if the camera is going to show that. Blue is vapor. Yeah, it's not really going to show. Red is liquid. Okay. So people ask me all the time, why do you have one hooked up to the other? Okay. Because on every tank, at least in the area that I'm in, the tanks always flip-flop those depending on the manufacturer. Okay. So this is the dip tube. Now, the next question is, when I'm recovering liquid refrigerant, why do I hook up to the vapor port? That's a really good question. So this would be the liquid tube, the dip tube that's hooked up to the liquid port, which is the red, okay, on this recovery manifold setup. This tube is smaller than 1/4 inch diameter ID, okay? So this creates a restriction when you're trying to push liquid refrigerant through this. Your evacuation can be sped up by eliminating restrictions. So when I'm pumping refrigerant into my tank or even removing refrigerant from my tank, I will oftentimes hook up to the vapor port and flip the tank over so that way it stacks the liquid up and I'm not just dumping vapor on top of the liquid, okay? So that's why I invert my cylinders. Now, whether or not that's faster, I don't know. I read a tech tip from Appion, which is a refrigerant hose manufacturer. They make machines and stuff like that. And they actually had a service bulletin out there that said, hey, send your, to make it go faster, hook up to the vapor port and flip it over. And it logically makes sense to me. Now, it hasn't been scientifically proven that it makes it faster, but I do that, and that's why, okay? But understand that liquid and vapor flip-flop on recovery tanks all day long, so. Let's see what else we got in here. I mentioned sweeping nitrogen. Is that just pushing through the service port for like a clean out after purging? Chris Young. So yeah, when I sweep a system with nitrogen, what I mean is that I'm going to push nitrogen in through one side of the system and I want it to exit the complete opposite side of the system. So let's say I did a big repair on a system, a refrigeration system, and there's potential moisture and or air in the system. Before I start my evacuation, I would try to take nitrogen, right, in hopes that it's dry nitrogen, and I'm going to push it in the liquid side. If at all possible, you're going to push it in the natural refrigerant flow through the system. I'm going to push it in the liquid side through the receiver port, and I'm going to open up the suction port at the compressor. I'm going to open up all solenoid valves in the system, and I want it to go in the liquid receiver, come all the way through the condenser, go all the way through the liquid line, downstairs, come back up into the suction line, and come back out so it sweeps the entire system, potentially displacing any oxygen. Then my theory is that I'm going to put an evacuation on the system, run a vacuum, and then try to pull out the nitrogen. So the whole point of sweeping it is to try to push out any moisture and or air that's in the system, so that way I only have to try to remove the nitrogen from the system. It's just something that I read. Again, these are all theory things, right? We just read them in a book and it says to do it this way. Sometimes it's hard to understand what's going on in a system because we can't physically see it. I've got some ideas in my head that I'm trying to come up with ways to try to fix that and change that. So let's hope we can do that. I've got some experiments I want to do. I'm trying to find a vacuum chamber because I want to do some experiments with nitrogen and oil to where we can visually see it, because I'm a visual person. I like to see things. So, if I can see something happen and it makes much more sense to me. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Is Masterbuilt a cold zone company? No, Masterbuilt is a Standex company, I believe. Masterbuilt and Glass Tender and a couple other ones are owned by the same. They're a conglomerate too. But no, Masterbuilt is a separate company from Cold Zone. Masterbuilt will oftentimes use other manufacturers' equipment though. Masterbuilt they get a lot of their walk-in evaporators made from the same company that makes Russell and or Cold Zone evaporators. Whether or not that's Russell or some other company, I don't know. But the Masterbuilt evaporators oftentimes are the same thing as a Russell, but they're not the same company, I don't think. But again, I'm not an expert on that kind of stuff. So what do I think about triple evacuation? I've read a lot of information that basically says triple evacuation is not really anything that is very useful anymore. Triple evacuation, and my understanding about it was that it was basically intended for our poor evacuations that we did in the past. We didn't have very good pumps. We were pulling through Schraders. We were pulling through our manifold sets. Nowadays, we have giant hoses that we can get. We have very high powered pumps, and we can evacuate that system much faster. So we would use a triple evac before they even talked about nitrogen. Okay, the original triple evac, you would take R12 refrigerant or R22 refrigerant. You would vacuum down to a certain level. You would pressurize with R12 or R22. You would sweep the system. Then you would pull the evacuation down a little bit more. You'd vent that to the atmosphere. You'd pull down a little bit more. Then you'd sweep with refrigerant again, and then you'd pull down the system even more. Now, that was pre-EPA rules and all that fancy stuff, okay? They substitute the triple evacuation with nitrogen to be more environmentally friendly. But, you know, I've read some conflicting information that says a triple evacuation is completely useless so long as you pull a proper evacuation with these big hoses and these big vacuum pumps. I will say right now that I can understand this one in my head. You can go buy a 30 CFM evacuation pump, okay? And if you use 1/4 inch hoses, that 30 CFM pump ain't doing crap. It's doing like 2 CFM's worth of work or a CFM's worth of work, okay? So there's no point in buying these giant vacuum pumps if you're not going to use bigger hoses. An 8 CFM pump, okay, you know, this is a funny phrase, but it's like sucking a golf ball through a garden hose, right? But I know that's a silly phrase, but it's true, okay? You put a giant pump on that thing, and it's still like trying to suck a golf ball through a garden hose. It's not going to go anywhere, okay? Make the hose bigger, and it's going to pass right through, okay? So you take that as that it is, okay? Let me see what I got going on here. The next thing I want to talk about, and I got a lot of questions about this, is the DTC valve, okay? The expansion valve looking funky thing on scroll compressors that I use on low temperature scroll compressors. This right here is a DTC valve actually off of the compressor that I did the late night walk-in freezer change out on. This is mounted to the crank or to the side of the compressor through a rotolock fitting. If you guys saw my video, this is the fitting that I forgot to put the rotolock gasket in, and it was causing a leak in my walk-in freezer compressor. So a lot of people ask me about these DTC valves, okay? Discharge temperature controlled expansion valve. That's what this is. This right here is an expansion valve, guys. That's it. This is the expansion valve you guys think of. This is the same thing. This is an expansion valve too, okay? Hey, Joe, thank you very much, man, for that super chat. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we do have a new record on the viewers of the live stream. It's never been this high. I see 325 right now. Thank you guys for watching. This is the highest it's ever been. I believe it crept just a little bit higher than that. But yeah, this is the highest, okay? So this DTC valve is a discharge temperature controlled expansion valve, okay? It is the same thing as this thermostatically controlled expansion valve, okay? It doesn't have an adjustment stem on it. It doesn't have a range, okay? It just opens and closes, but it is an expansion valve. That's all this is, okay? These are mounted on Copeland Scroll low temperature compressors, and they're there to regulate the discharge temperature. You want to know something interesting? Do you know how they regulate Liv20 or LJV209? Thank you very much for that super chat, okay? Do you know how they regulate discharge temperature of a compressor? They lower the suction gas temperature. That's all that they do. If you lower the suction gas temperature coming back to the compressor, you lower the discharge temperature coming back to the compressor, okay? There's a lot more to it, but that's what they do. Okay, so this right here takes liquid refrigerant and injects it. They call this liquid injection. It injects it into the low side of the compressor through a special port on these Copeland Scroll compressors, and it acts like a metering device. It is a metering device. It brings liquid refrigerant, it meters it just like an expansion valve, and cools down the head of the compressor. That's all it does. Lowers the suction temp, or brings the temperature of the head of the compressor down. I shouldn't say suction temp, okay? So the DTC valve is pretty much, again, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm kind of making a a dumbass guess right here, but it's pretty much the same thing as the temperature responsive expansion valve that Sporlan makes. It's the Y1037 valve, okay? If you guys want to know more about those, I'd highly suggest you go over to Sporlan's website. Another thing too, before I forget, and I know the moderator bot has been posting it, but Sporlan actually has a webinar coming up this Thursday, okay? I want you guys to register for. Sporlan has great information on their webinars. And what we're going to do, this webinar is going to be, I'm going to pull it up right now real quick. Hold on just one second. Control V. So this webinar is their supermarket series of webinars, okay? And it is going to be on metering devices, okay? Just because it says supermarket series does not mean that you guys need to be afraid of that, okay? Sporlan has amazing information. I watched, and the two guys that do these webinars, they have a great vibe going between the two of them, and it actually really is very enjoyable to listen to. So I'd highly suggest that you guys register for this webinar. Don't be intimidated because I said supermarket, okay? There is lots of valuable information for a residential service tech to watch this webinar too, okay? This will post on their Facebook page. This will post on their YouTube channel, but you can join live and ask questions live if you click on that link and register for that webinar, okay? Lots of great information on the Sporlan website. I'd highly suggest it. What I'm going to do is actually pull up the website, and I'm going to show you guys something real quick. So we're going to go to display capture again. I'm going to launch this over there, and hold on just one second. Let me pull that up. So I'm going to pull up Sporlan's website. I did right now. You can go to sporlan.com. Okay. If you scroll down on their website right here, it says literature. Click on there. This is one of my favorite sections right here. And if you click on thermostatic expansion valves, okay. And if you go right down here, the Y1037, the SD-168 is going to talk about the temperature responsive expansion valves. They work pretty much the same as the DTC or the discharge temperature controlled valves on the Copeland compressors. So do some research on those temperature responsive expansion valves, and you guys will learn some great information on those, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and transition back away from this. I highly suggest that you guys register for Sporlan's webinar. I don't know if they're going to cover the DTC valves in there, but I'm sure that if you guys go into that webinar, you can simply just post a question and ask about the discharge temperature controlled valves. And I'm sure that they'll answer that question in that webinar, okay? It's a great resource for information for you guys. So I highly suggest it. So LM Silva, you asked, the DTC valves only work on high load temperature of the system. Yes, that is correct. So the DTC valve has a certain cut-in temperature when the sensing bulb looks a little bit different than a normal expansion valve, but it's the same concept. Copeland has engineered their compressors to have a special rotolock fitting on them for the low temps. And you have this sensing bulb that inserts in the head of the compressor. And whenever the head of the compressor gets over a certain temperature, this valve opens up. And it just is trying to cool the discharge temperature of the compressor. That's all it's trying to do. Okay. I guess you can almost argue that it is kind of a de-superheating expansion valve, but I would lean on Sporlan before I go too far in my explanation on those. I have a general understanding of those, but I don't want to put my foot in my mouth again like I usually do. So highly suggest you guys go into that webinar and just ask them about the DTC valves or the temperature responsive expansion valves, and I'm sure they'll answer that in the webinar, okay? Would I prefer a Graslin defrost clock or any defrost clocks? Okay, it really depends. I've talked about this many times. Depending on the environment that I'm in, I will use a Graslin defrost clock. I will use a Paragon defrost clock. A Graslin I call electromechanical. Paragon I call mechanical. Or I will use something as like the Ketatherm Temp Plus defrost controller or the Penn A419 temperature controller with defrost, okay? It just depends on what I'm working on in the particular situations. I like to keep, for the most part, the same components that came with the system in the system, but I've oftentimes changed them too, depending on if I constantly am going through Graslin defrost clocks. Like, here's the weakness of a Graslin. They can't handle sandy environments. So out in the desert where the wind blows sand all the time, you need to take the Graslin clocks out, okay? Paragon defrost clocks, your best if they don't have a contactor for the defrost heaters on electric defrost, the Paragon clocks are typically going to have a problem, because over time the screw terminals get loose and the contactors are going to melt, or the contacts are going to melt. That's why you'll find a Paragon that's melted, okay? But I still install Paragons, just only if they have a defrost contactor for the most part, okay? And I still install Graslins so long as we don't have issues with them binding up with sand all the time. I might use either or I'll go in and install a temperature controller that has built-in defrost. It really depends on the particular situation. Here's the thing I don't like about temperature controllers that have built-in defrost, such as the Key2Therm Temp Plus Defrost or the Penn or Johnson Controls A419. I can't physically pull the clock apart and make sure that the timer is working. On a Graslin, I can mark it with a marker and turn my watch on and look at my watch and say, in 30 minutes, that clock better have moved 30-minute increments. Or a Paragon, same thing. A Paragon, you can pull it back while it's energized very carefully, and you can see the timer motor moving in the background, okay? So each one has a good thing and a bad thing. And I'm not going to say one's worse than the other. They all have a certain situation that they work best in. So hopefully that answers that. Carol Baskin. I am honored that Carol Baskin's in here. And hey, Carol Baskin, are you getting any money for the whole Netflix reboot with Nicolas Cage and all that stuff? Because, hey, I would appreciate some major super chats from Carol Baskin if she's getting any kickbacks from Netflix, okay? So I have a feeling I know who Carol Baskin is, and I have a feeling Carol Baskin changes its name all the time, but let's go with that. All right, let's see. Yeah, highly suggest people checking out the HVACR school or HVAC school podcast for sure. Okay. Oh yeah, Pro C. Go to hvacrschool.com and register for their podcast, the webinar. There's a lot of different podcasts. I probably need to make a video on that. Okay. HVAC Overtime has interesting podcasts that I've been on a few times, and I have a feeling I'll be on a few more times as we come onto the new show, or, you know, as I'm part of the show a little bit more. HVAC Uncensored, HVAC Shop Talk. There's so many different podcasts out there. HVAC School. So send me an email if anybody's interested in the podcast that I listen to. One of these, maybe on the next live stream, I'll pull up my phone and I'll show the podcasts I listen to and stuff. I don't think there's a way that I can pull that up on my computer right now. Let me see. Google Podcasts. Because I use Google Podcasts as my app for podcasts. So let's see if I can pull that up on my phone. Ooh, I think I can. Something went wrong. Let's see if I can log into my account on Google Podcasts. And let's see what I subscribe to. Oh, yeah. Here's just a few of them. I'll pull up my Google Podcasts right now that I subscribe to. So let me go to normal display capture. Let me transition this over and transition that. So here's just a few of the podcasts that I subscribe to. The Building HVAC Science by Bill Spohn. That is a great podcast about indoor air quality. HVAC Know-It-All podcast with Gary McCready up there in Canada. The HVAC School podcast with Brian Orr. That is an amazing podcast. HVAC Shop Talk, HVAC Reefer Guy, HVAC Uncensored. I don't know why the HVAC Overtime one isn't popping up on here, but HVAC Overtime is one. Marvel's Wolverine, that's a personal one I listen to. Service Business Mastery with my buddy Tersh Blissett, the HVAC Jerks, Mark and yeah. See, this is an old list because I don't subscribe to Mark and Linda podcast anymore. The Tech Guy Leo Laporte, The Way I Heard It Mike Rowe, This Week in Google. Yeah, these aren't accurate. Tool Pros podcast. Let's just go to HVAC Overtime. Let's click that one and let's go ahead and subscribe because I should be subscribed to the HVAC Overtime podcast since I was just plugging that one. So, yeah, those are just some of the podcasts that I subscribe to. Yeah, there's I don't know why that wasn't on there. I think this is a different account, but yeah, lots of great podcasts out there. There's plenty more. Just enter in the search term HVAC and you guys will find all kinds of them. Okay, so I'm going to transition over real quick. Let's see what else we got. Let me see what I'm missing. Have I ever had to replace a Linux Prodigy board? Yes, I have replaced a Linux Prodigy board. I've replaced the M13, M17, M18, Linux Prodigy 1, Linux Prodigy 2. I've never changed the Linux Prodigy 2, actually. So, all right, let me see. Let me see. Have I ever had to... Yeah, I already answered that question. Jeff, the maintenance man. Thank you so very much, man. I really appreciate that super chat, Jeff. You're awesome, bud. Can I just tell the customer, like in, for instance, the walk-in freezer that I had to go out on, can I just tell them that I'll be back tomorrow? Can that wait? Do I have to do that call overnight? Unfortunately, when you're dealing with refrigeration on the restaurant side, and especially when you get into the supermarket side, expect to work hours. Now, on the restaurant side, I do crazy calls like that probably once every 3 to 4 months. So it's not all the time. If you're a supermarket guy, I'm sure there's a few in here. They're very used to working every single week. When they're on call, they're working crazy hours. Okay. They're pulling all-nighters all the time. In the restaurant side, once every 3 or 4 months, we do these all-nighter calls. But no, we can't just tell the customer we'll be back tomorrow. It's not an air conditioning system that they can open a window on. Okay. And even some air conditioning systems they need right away, especially when they're dealing with critical systems. So honesty in HVAC sales, that's something else that I have on my list to talk about. Guys, I just recently, and again, I'm probably the worst person when it comes to business, okay? Because my customers, they come to me and they say, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm genuinely honest. So I had one of my restaurant customers come to me. They're a small chain of a giant franchise. They're independent. They own their own franchises, right? And they have probably about 12 stores, and they came to me and they said, hey, we heard there's a special filter we can get, and we want UV lights in all of our air conditioners to protect against COVID-19. And I just told him, first off, there's nothing that is proven to protect against COVID-19. I can put in pleated air filters. I do not suggest anything over just a standard pleated filter because your systems aren't designed for it. And I do not suggest UV lights, my personal preference, okay, in my customer's personal situation, okay? I'm not saying UV lights are horrible altogether, but I'm not just a salesman, and I'm probably the worst person to tell you guys about this stuff, okay? Because I tried to talk my customer out of these indoor air quality products. But my customer came to me and they said, hey, I want you to put in some sort of indoor air quality. So I started looking for UV lights. You can't find them. Every residential company's bought up damn near every UV light out there. Okay. I can't find them unless you buy some aftermarket weird crap off Amazon. But then I told my customer, look, if I came up with a UV light, in all honesty, to put it in the Airstream, I'd need to put a whole array of UV lights. You're not just going to go buy one of these chinguses they put in the side. It's going to be like a giant complex thing with 12 different bulbs and all this stuff for it to be effective. My customer said, no, I just want something. So I found an indoor air quality product, okay, made by said manufacturer that I'm not going to promote because I genuinely don't believe in the product. And I said, look, this device says it kills some viruses, but I can guarantee you they do not have any proof that it kills the current one that we're fighting, but it kills viruses similar to it. And then I said, hey, in order for this particular device to work in your air conditioners, we didn't need to install multiples because this is only made for a 5-ton system and you have a 10-ton system. So we need to install multiple devices. And the customer declined that, but they still wanted one of each of those devices in every one of their air conditioners. So I am honest with my customers, and probably I'm not telling you guys you need to be the same way. Maybe I'm wrong for doing this, but I was genuinely honest and I said, hey, I don't think this is going to work. I'll sell it to you, but I want you to understand up front that here's the things that I think it's not going to do. I don't think it's going to do X, Y, and Z. Okay. But I can't stress enough about honesty, okay? Do I think selling indoor air quality products is wrong? No, I don't think that it's wrong. But I think that you need to be honest and upfront with the customer. If you go in there and say that this is going to cure this virus, you're flat out lying because you don't know that to be the truth. There's a possibility there might be some truth in it, but you don't know it to be true at this point in time, okay? We got to be fair and honest with our customers, okay? Now, again, I'm not giving you guys business advice because I'm probably the worst person in the world to do so, but we need to be honest and fair with our customers, okay? Brett had actually asked me about why I only do service and not new construction, okay? Personally, my business model is that I've been burnt too many times on new construction. I've done new construction with restaurant builds. I've worked for general contractors. And my personal experience is that I've gotten burnt too many times by companies filing bankruptcy, companies nickel and diming me, not wanting to pay full amounts, that kind of stuff. So I stay busy enough dealing with service work. And that's why I just deal with service work. Stuart had asked me a question about whether or not I thought it was a good idea for him to change companies in the middle of this crisis that we're going through. Okay. So he basically said that he works for a giant company and he honestly hasn't seen much in change of his hours. but he kind of wants to get into more of the refrigeration side and go work for a smaller company, but he's worried about being laid off, excuse me. My personal opinion on that matter is you need to do what's best for you and your family. Talk with your loved ones, your significant other, and decide the best course of action. Okay. Would I advise people to jump ship and change companies right now in the middle of this uncertainty? Probably not, unless you're confident that you're going to stay busy. Okay. So in the midst of all this craziness right now, I mean, my personal opinion would be to float through this, stay where you're at, save us as much money as you can. And then when things kind of get a little bit better, make the best educated decision that's best for you and your family. That would be my advice on that. What's my favorite brand of restaurant reach and cooler? The Hvacr Blue system is my favorite. It is a glycol chiller. I work on them quite a bit in my videos. They're my favorite brand of refrigerator. They have some things that are a little bit difficult, but they're my favorite brand. So, yeah, that's funny, Adam. You have an air scrubber that's not working. Okay. Have I heard of an air scrubber plus? No, I haven't heard of an air scrubber plus. I've heard of normal air scrubbers though. Do I install duct detectors in HVAC units? No, it's okay. I do install duct detectors in HVAC units. That's a duct detector training board. I have several videos on duct smoke detectors. Yes, I do install them. I'll replace them after the fact. I don't do new installations on new buildings. I don't start up new fire systems or anything like that, but I will change duct detectors when they fail. Oftentimes, I will fix wiring issues that have been existent for many years because I do understand the duct detectors that I work on. I even understand the fire alarm panel wiring within my duct detector. So yes, if you just look up duct detectors or smoke detectors in the search bar on my channel, you'll see several videos where I talk about duct detectors. So would I go to a retirement center with a COVID outbreak? They sent me and wanted me to have and wear. Yeah, dhard01. Honestly, if I was sent to a retirement center right now that have a COVID outbreak, I probably personally would decline that call. You need to make the best decision for you and your family right now. I personally wouldn't do that one right now. I wouldn't even send my guys to do that one right now. So I don't even think I would give my guys the option because yeah, there's too many rules and laws in California, and I'm not going to get into the details of that, but yeah, no, not my thing. Your previous company pushed that air scrubber plus. Oh, okay, got you. Do I eat at the places I service? D Warden 3. Yes and no. Some of the places I service I eat at. Some of them I don't. It's not because I think that they're nasty, just because when I go home, oftentimes restaurants will offer me food all day long when I'm working there. And when I go home, my family oftentimes wants to go out to dinner. And I just don't want to eat that stuff. Like, I've just been out there working and all of it. I'm just not a fan of it. But yeah, I'll eat at every one of my restaurants that I work at. Yeah, even the ones that you guys think are hideous and nasty, I'll still eat there because if you guys think the stuff you see in my videos is disgusting, it's not. The stuff I don't do is the disgusting stuff. So do I have RTUs with enthalpy wheels in the US and recovery wheels inside? Sterling. Yeah, we do. I mean, I have one restaurant that has recovery wheels or heat recovery ventilators. They're enthalpy wheels. They're basically, guys, if you don't know what they are, they basically, they're trying to harvest wasted energy is what they do. Okay. So they'll, an air conditioner might bring outside air in and it runs it through a heat recovery wheel, or an air conditioner might be trying to get cool air through a heat recovery wheel. So we have them. They're more on the industrial side and not so much in the restaurants though. So what is it I don't like about stainless steel TXVs, Ringo or? They're usually too small, too tiny. I prefer a standard expansion valve with the brass copper connections on it. But the stainless steel TXVs are becoming very popular. Even Sporland's starting to make some stainless steel TXVs, especially in the R290 category. The stainless steel TXVs are typically tiny though, so it makes it difficult to protect them when you're trying to braze them in and things like that. On the flip side, I have heard arguments that on the stainless steel TXVs, you don't have to protect them. So yeah. All right. Let me see what else I have in here. All right. I've kind of answered that one. All right, gentlemen. Gentlemen and ladies, I'd assume there might be a few ladies in here. I am going to transition on out of here. I really, really appreciate you guys coming in here. Do me a favor, for those of you that haven't, if you're considering purchasing any tools, please go to truetechtools.com, see if they have the right price for you. And if they do, use my offer code Big Picture, one word. You'll save 8% on your order, and you help to support the channel because I get a small commission every time you use that offer code. Do me a favor too. If you guys want to help to support the channel, share that offer code. If you know anybody else that wants to purchase anything off truetechtools.com, share my offer code, Big Picture, one word. Tell them to use it too. It'll help to support my channel. You can do it that way. I'd really, really appreciate it. Okay. I'm going to transition this on out of here. If I can figure out how to do this and turn this off. Whoop, I'm pushing all the wrong buttons right now. I'm going to turn that off, turn that on, and I'm going to transition the outro music. And we will catch you guys on the next one. If y'all could do one thing, if y'all could take one thing from my videos or my live streams, please stop, take a second, take a step back, and look at the big picture. Yo, how many people can we lose? Let's see how many people we can drop right now. Okay. And how many people come back? So I see it drop down to 248. Okay. Oh yeah, we got an encore for sure. So we got plenty more to go right here. So I see it drop down to 248, and let's see how much we can increase it back. Will people actually come back, or will people just chime back in? So, definitely a very stressful week when it comes to videos and all that stuff. That late night walk-in freezer call kicked my ass, man. That one is just hurting. I'm really waiting for this work to pick back up. Oh man, I'm really waiting for this to pick back up. So yeah, man, I'm still seeing 248. So still going good. Yeah, 210 I see on my other thing. Yeah, my live streaming software is low. So yeah, I don't care if we lose them. It's all good. No worries. This is just the relaxed part. So, oh man, my throat's kind of hurting too from talking. Whew, getting me. Yeah, gulp, gulp. That's right. So, I don't have anything to give away, but I think the next giveaway I'm going to do is going to be on the encore. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be next live stream, but I like doing that kind of stuff. Again, I don't have anything to give away, but when I do giveaways, I like doing the stuff where it's not like a publicized giveaway and I just reward the people that actually come and watch the stream and then like don't tell anybody I'm going to do it and then boom. Like, I like doing that kind of stuff. It's more fun for me than to like make this big old announcement and da 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 da. But, you know, if I ever worked with a manufacturer or anything like that, you know, they may want me to do a giveaway like that where we announce everything and publicize it and all that stuff. But yeah. Music recommendation. Bisbee, Maru. That's the artist. I'll have to check it out, Ringo Orr. So for sure. Let me see what else we got going on in here. This is the cool part. This is the more relaxed part where I'm just chill. Is there any update on Discord? No, it's just not something I've really had the attention span to be able to focus on the Discord thing. And I know that, you know, you're offering the whole moderation and all that stuff. It's just not something I've done yet, but no, not really any update as of yet. Just because I'm going to taste the hazelnut brown. That's right. You know that, right? All right. I'm actually getting a little worried though, because how much I look forward to these while I'm doing the live streams. I've never been one to look forward to having a drink, and kind of worries me. I need to get away from that. So yeah, Knight. I've been doing this more and more where I come on after the fact. Really, LM Sylvia. Yeah, so you're in South Argentina or Venezuela, LM Sylvia. I can't remember where you said you were. I know you're down south somewhere. Yeah, we don't have a gas crisis right now. We're starting to have some weird food crises where they're saying like meat packing plants are shutting down and stuff like that. Like if you go to Costco, they limit you to like 3 pieces of meat and stuff like 3 items. But I just went to the local farmers market. My wife and I did, and we just bought a bunch of like stuff from a local farmer. That was awesome. Um, Let me see. Albert, you have a solenoid magnet that will not let nitrogen through. You didn't overheat it and hear it click with a service magnet. That's interesting, bud. Yeah, I don't know, man. Send me an email. I really don't cover technical on these after shows, so just send me an email. Yeah, gas is cheap right here. So right now, Sterling, correct. The nation needs the beard back. All right, let's see. Man, how's your guys' family doing? My family's doing pretty good. My daughters are doing okay. My wife is kind of having a hard time because she's been having like health problems. My wife's fine, but she just has like thyroid problems and stuff like that. I've talked about it on my stream. So she's been like fighting the whole thyroid stuff and just getting her numbers where they need to be. It's like a constant battle. She has to take medicine for the rest of her life. So she's been kind of fighting that, but she's fine. I mean, nothing major, just having to deal with that. And we've just been kind of cooped up and stressed out at home, that kind of stuff. I'm just ready for work to get back to normal. Even though like I'm not looking forward to the stress of work. You know, it's funny, like, you know, we bring our employees back and I'm thankful that my employees come back because they make it so I don't have to work as much. But at the same time, when I'm working, I don't have to worry about anything because I know that I'm doing everything the exact way that I want to do it. So it's not that I have bad employees. It's just that it makes it a little bit more stressful for me. So, you know, it's, I don't know. I guess there was like a sense of ease that the fact when I was the only person working. But yeah, I'm just so like obsessed with my customers' satisfaction and how they do things and how they want things. Venezuela, that's what I thought. I knew you were down south somewhere. You can't find that beer nowhere. Where do I get it? I get it from Bevmo. Bevmo is a alcohol place. It's very similar to like Total Wine and More or something like that. Just look up Rogue, Rogue, hazelnut brown nectar. It's from Seattle or Washington. Someone in my stream is always telling me that it's made like up in Seattle or something like that, or Oregon or some. I think it might be Oregon or something is where it's bottled. It's super good. Really dig it. And then got to get out of that brown. Or no, wait. I don't know. There's a brown. I like brown ales. Anything brown is my thing. So let's see what else. Remember, if you guys have something, there's a lot going on in the chat, so put it in caps lock if you have something you want me to read. So remember, too, that I'll be on the HVAC Overtime show tentatively on Friday with Joe and Bill and Adam and myself. So, and occasionally Yamo. So, does Sporlin have operation videos? I get sleepy when you read. Chris. That's a good question. They have some videos, but I don't know that they have much operation videos. I think that more, see, because I'm kind of like that, Chris, too. So, you know, when I use tools and I don't like to read manuals. I don't like to read them unless I absolutely have to. So, yeah, I like a video. A good video is a good way to get information out there. And I think more manufacturers, I think Sporlin's making a genuine effort to put more videos out, but I think more manufacturers need to make more videos or align themselves with video making people. So that way we can show people, you know, like this is how you do it instead of people having to read all kinds of information. Personally, I hate reading crap on my phone. It genuinely sucks. So, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, or Once Upon a Time in the West. I don't really, I know I've seen Once Upon a Time in the West, but I'm more familiar with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I'm going to say The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly because the song at the end of the movie, The Ecstasy of Gold, is one of my favorite songs. And I really wish I had the rights to use that as my intro song. So I'm going to say The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That's probably one of my favorite movies too. My kids hate when I watch Westerns. I genuinely love those movies. So, let me see what else. How about IPAs? Yeah, I'm not a hoppy person, so I don't like IPAs. My dad is really big on IPAs, and he likes the hazy IPAs. I do not like hoppy beers. My wife likes hoppy IPAs too, but I do not like IPAs. I like brown ales. I'm not a sour either. Yeah, Anicio Marconi. Yeah. Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. However you pronounce that dude's name. That is an amazing song. I love it. Your Name is Nobody. Right on. Westerns for sure. Yeah, Adam's going to cook me to the curb. That's right. Adam's going to use me and abuse me until he cuts a deal with Brian. That's right. No, Adam's a good dude. I ain't worried about anything. Adam can use me for as long as he wants. There's no expectation from me whatsoever, guys. I'm not like really looking to go anywhere from working with anybody. I'm just going on Adam's and Joe's and Bill's show just to go on there. There's nothing that I'm getting from that. There's nothing they're getting from that. We're just a bunch of dudes having genuine conversations, and we have a good vibe going when we have conversations. So that's why I was like, yeah, for sure, we'll do that. No worries. IPA is looking like a cedar tree. Exactly. IPAs are just weird, man. So yeah, for sure, they are weird. Yeah, our Storm Eagle 28. Hey, how's it going, man? You're from Germany. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, R22 is still legal in the United States, but here's the deal. The United States do not allow us to produce any new R22, and they do not allow us to import any new R22, but we have stockpiles. So our supply houses have stockpiled piles and piles of R22. So yes, the price is slowly going to go up, but it is not illegal to use it. We can legally use R22 all day long. I know, unlike a lot of other countries, I'm assuming Germany, and I know a lot of the European countries have made it completely illegal to use R22. That is not the case here in the United States. So have I ever done a burnout? I'm sure I have when I was younger in my piece of crap little pickup truck. My little pickup truck when I was in high school was a 1988 Chevy S10 single cab. It started out as dark blue, and then I was in auto collision class, so I primered the whole thing, and it ended as primer. So I sold it as a primered truck. But yeah, I'm sure I did a burnout with one wheel in that little piece of crap. It had a 2.8 liter V6 in it. Manual transmission. So yeah, I'm sure I did a one-wheeled burnout many times. Have I ever worked on a system operated by solar? No, I have not, Chris. I've never worked on something like that at all. Is it legal to use R22 for new installs? Curtis 94. Yes, it is. It is perfectly legal to use R22 for new installation. Yes. The manufacturers cannot supply you with equipment that comes with R22. No, that is not legal, but I can put R22 in any new unit. Yes. My understanding on that one, I believe that's correct. So we can do dry charged R22. They're not allowed to sell R22 equipped on new installations, but I can put R22 in a unit and not be illegal, to my understanding. So I haven't done a burnout yet, no. With my one-wheeled burnout. Now that it's slow, do I use my little car plug-in cooker for lunch? Sterling, good question. I was just telling my wife the other day. So it's called the Hot Logic Mini, is what I bought a couple years ago. And I need to start using that again. I haven't used it in a while, probably 6 to 8 months. I haven't used that. It's a little 115 volt, or you can get it in a 12 volt. And I did a video on my channel where you can cook chicken in it. I need to do that more often because I need to start saving some money. I spend so much stupid money. When you really, when this whole thing hit, we really started reflecting on how much money we were spending, and it really makes you think twice about money and all kinds of stuff. And I really need to stop spending so much on fast food for sure. Any preference with the ultrasonic leak detectors? So I'm not going to name which manufacturer, but I had a manufacturer send me an ultrasonic leak detector as a test. And I told them that if I liked it, I would do a video on it. And they sent it to me, and I actually sent it back because I tested it. Again, I'm not going to name which manufacturer it is, but I tested it out, and I genuinely did not really find a use for an ultrasonic leak detector. I know some people swear by them, and I tried. I tried it for like 4 months. I kept trying it. I kept trying it in different situations, and I just couldn't get a genuine. I don't want to talk bad about any product at all, but I just couldn't find a genuine use for an ultrasonic leak detector compared to my D-Tech Select. My D-Tech Select does me well, and I love it. So I couldn't do it. So I can't give I'm not going to badmouth the manufacturer which ultrasonic leak detector I tried, but I like the D-Tech Select much better. So, oh wow, it looks like the movie quotes are popping up again because it's been so long. Yeah. Can't go around in life without knowing that. Yeah, for sure. Let's see what else. Can ultrasonic tell who farted in the van? I don't know, man. I was kind of curious about the ultrasonic and finding like bad bearings and things like that, but I just couldn't find the use for it. So, no, it's not my choice. When is the new tool review video coming out? Well, I released one, and that was on the work pants. The next one that I'm probably going to release is on the thermal imaging cameras. So that'll come sometime. I tried filming it the other day actually, and I just didn't like the footage, so I didn't release it. So I gotta refilm it. The thing is that you have to understand that I said this in the beginning of my stream. I genuinely don't have a plan for my channel, and I'm not doing this with the intention of making $1 million from it, okay? Yes, I'm not going to lie. I do make some money from these videos, okay? And I'm not going to lie that it doesn't help. It definitely helps me making money from these videos, but I'm not going to sell out. I'm not going to make... It's just not my style. I'm not saying other people have sold out. It's just not my style. So I'm not in here. I'm in here to do this my way, okay? So the thermal imaging cameras, I'm going to review them, right? But I bought them all with my own money. I bought 3 of them. I bought the FLIR 1 Pro, I bought the Seek Shot Pro, and I bought the FLIR C2 or C3. I can't remember which one it is. C2, I think, or C3, whatever. And they're all really cool cameras, but I'm going to make a video about what I like about them, but I'm not going to be owned by anybody. I don't want a manufacturer telling me you have to say these nice things about my tool. No, I don't want to say anything negative if I don't have to, but yeah, I'm going to do this my way. And, you know, yeah, it takes me longer to make a video, but you know, I guess, I don't know. I'm probably the worst when it comes to these video making things. There's many other guys that make YouTube videos, and they're probably really smart about the way that they work with advertisers and different things like that. I can't tell you how many advertisers I've turned down, you know, or people that want to do things and like, hey, we'll send you a free tool if you make a video. Nah, that's not what I want to do. I don't want a free tool because I don't want to be owned by anybody. So, yeah, the pants one, I was trying to be as honest as possible. And I still wear those pants to this day. The pants that I chose in the pants review was the 511 Tactical Strike pants. Those are my favorite ones. I still wear those to this day. But they're good for me out in Southern California where we don't have a winter. So, you know. Yeah, sweet YouTube money. I'm going to be honest with you right now. The amount of, like, don't get me wrong, I make money from YouTube, but the amount of time I put into my videos, with the amount of time that I put into my videos, I make about $20 an hour from my YouTube money. That's pretty safe to say. $15 to $20 an hour. So when you think about the amount of time I ignore my family because I'm sitting in my office for $15 to $20 an hour, and I'm not trying to downplay $15 to $20 an hour. It's amazing. That's awesome money. It's better than nothing. But for $15 to $20 an hour, sometimes it's not worth it. So I need a HVAC supplement line and protein powder. Yeah, definitely, Sterling. So do I use Copeland scroll compressors in existing HVAC units? Everything you like, 8902. I try to use whatever came in the manufactured unit. I try not to change from what the manufacturer has in their equipment because that's what it was manufactured for. So if it has a Train pumpkin compressor, then I try to use a Train pumpkin Alliance compressor. If it has a Train Alliance compressor made by Copeland, I try to use the Alliance compressor from Copeland. If it has a Train Copeland compressor, I try to use the Copeland. So I try to use OEM compressors as much as possible. So I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. And when things go bad, I can lean on the manufacturer. Okay. So whatever comes in the unit, I try to use that. I like Copeland compressors, sure, but I like Tecumseh compressors equally as good in certain situations. I like Manurup compressors equally as good in certain situations, which is owned by Danfoss, and the same thing goes for Bristol compressors. If I'm working on a York unit, I'm probably going to try to put the OEM Bristol compressor back in it instead of trying to change the equipment over, okay? So I'm a big OEM fan because if it was designed that way, I try to leave it that way. Let's see what else. When is the next haul? I don't know what that means. Have I ever used that dial-a-charge in the background? No, I have not ever used that dial-a-charge. One of my employees gave that to me a few years ago, along with that Annie, the hermetic compressor analyzer, the light blue one. Now, the dark gray one or the black one, that was my Annie that I used on my van for many years. That was my compressor analyzer. But the light blue one of my employees gave me, and the Simpson meter, that was my dad's meter. I never used that. So, when is the next tool review coming? Hopefully soon. So, Cialis next. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right, gentlemen. I'm going to wrap this up. I really, really appreciate you. And I'm going to cue up the outro music for real. And I'm going to go eat dinner because I am hungry. So I'm going to cue up the one that I think I'm going to keep. At least I like the beginning part of this outro music. So.